Welcome back to the channel, guys. I just bought this storage unit for only $10. I was the only bidder. You couldn't really see much in the photos. It was just kind of some garbage piled up in the front, but it was a 5x15 and it looked pretty full. And for 10 bucks, it's pretty hard to go wrong. There's a lot of trash, empty bottles, a old Taco Bell box that still had food inside of it. But hidden away right here in front were some Nintendo Switch games. Unfortunately, all the boxes were empty, but it did give me some hope that the rest of the unit would be pretty good. Here's most of the stuff brought back into my garage. And it just goes to show, never judge a book by its cover. There was a ton of really good stuff in this unit. I did have to take a full trailer and truckload to the dump, so there was a lot of garbage, but there was still a lot of good stuff in here. Lots of different PlayStation and video games and electronics. There were a ton of kid clothes that were brand new, and even some of the adult clothes were nice, like North Face and Carhartt. The previous owner sure didn't know how to pack well. Everything was kind of just hodgepodge into different totes and boxes and stuff. And most of the cardboard boxes that were here were falling apart. So far we got a bunch of old video games. I remember playing with a slot car track like this when I was a kid. There were a handful of cars, 4 different controllers. This is the kind of stuff you want to find in storage units. Old, expensive stuff. This is a bag of hoe, train track, buildings. It's a nice collector's edition of Mass Effect with all the CDs. A lot of the old PlayStation jewel cases were all cracked up and falling apart. There might have been like 10 or 15 PlayStation games. There were a handful of these model trains. Lots of model cars. It was strange. Each box was different in the sense that all the games were in the boxes in some of them, and then all of them were empty in other ones. So it's pretty hit or miss. Vintage Pokemon book. There were no Pokemon cards in the unit, unfortunately. It's a little fishing tackle box. A stained glass Mickey Mouse nightlight. An old calculator. These ones don't sell too well. It's the graphing calculators that are the valuable ones. And there were handfuls and handfuls of vintage Hot Wheel cars and Matchbox. A lot of the video games were just stuffed into these duffel bags. I talked to the storage unit facility and they said the owner got laid off and just couldn't afford to pay for the unit anymore and just let it go. Unfortunately, one of the Final Fantasy discs was missing. And of all the consoles, it seemed like the old Xbox was the most valuable. There was a PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, and a GameCube. Typically the VHSs don't sell too well. I found that the horror genre actually does pretty well, and there were a couple of those in this unit. And I spent a lot of time digging through these boxes trying to find those Nintendo Switch games since they're so small. Unfortunately, I was not able to find any of them. And I still have not found a Nintendo Switch. That's one of the things I've been looking for to save for myself. You can just see all these boxes were squished, half opened, falling apart. This was a little tackle box full of Tech Deck skateboards, lots of wheels and bearings and stuff. Unfortunately, this PlayStation game was missing one of the discs. It seemed like a lot of the old games had multiple discs. But I do like this box better than the jewel case. They seemed a little bit more durable. Only one GameCube game and about 15 different copies of Call of Duty. The Grand Theft Autos for PlayStation 2 seemed to be the most valuable games, and the boxes were in really good condition, and so were the CDs. This game was actually still brand new, but it was only like $8, so not worth that much. Huge bag of jewelry. Looked through it briefly and did not see anything that was actual gold or silver. But even costume jewelry sells pretty good. I've gotten like $10 a pound for it. Here's one of the good VHSs, Friday the 13th. There was the Titanic also. All these Play-Dohs were all old and crusty. I was told to always look through Bibles for money. Have not found any money in them. But I still waste my time doing it. And this is why I spent so much time digging through these boxes and totes, is that he just had stuff thrown in there, like this original yellow Pokemon game, which sell for pretty good money. This one will probably be like 50 bucks. Unfortunately, I don't have a Game Boy right now, so I can't test it. It was in pretty dirty condition. I was surprised how much this keyboard was worth. It was the Blue Man Group model. It did work. It was missing the battery case. I thought it was just some PVC tubes put together, but it was actually kind of a collectible item. Lots of the controllers were knockoff third-party brands, but even these big spider webs of cables are worth something for copper scrap. So I always save big boxes of these. There were 2 laptops and 2 desktops in the unit. Laptops were completely broken. Both desktops turned on and actually seemed to be worth some money. They were old vintage ones. So I was going to pull the hard drives off those and then try to list those for sale, but they could be worth $100, I think. I think people like to collect the old models and then refurbish them with new parts as like a vintage look. There was one box of Magic the Gathering. They looked like from the 2010s. I looked up all the rare cards and none of them were worth more than $1, so nothing really special here. I do like Magic the Gathering cards though. They're my favorite cards to find. A whole bunch of keyboards that were all really dirty and not worth selling. Big bag of bathroom supplies mixed in with vintage PlayStation games. A huge box of kid stuff. There are baby carriers, door swings. This popcorn tin is still open, but very expired. Went straight to the trash. Lots of the baby toys were brand new, still in the box. Sold everything in this box probably for 35, 40 bucks. So it's crazy when you get a unit for 10 bucks how easy it is to make your money back. This big bag of gummy worms expired in 2014. Now I'm not opposed to eating storage unit food, but 2014 is pushing it. Second Xbox console, filled with another big stash of games. There were a handful of Wii games also. No console. Usually the Wii is the most common console found, so I was kind of glad I didn't find that one this time. Lots of these Skylander and Disney Infinity characters. They sell for pretty good money. There must have been like 60 or 70 of them. I'm also on the hunt for a PlayStation 5. Have not found any PlayStation 5 stuff so far, not even a game or a controller. Now, why are people storing this stuff? It's literally garbage, an empty 2-liter bottle of soda, and this guy's paying to store it. The headsets were in good condition, but not worth that much. Some security camera stuff. There were the Magnetiles, Hot Wheel cars. These are the big monster truck editions. These monitors must have been like 40 pounds. They're super heavy. And there were a lot of books, hardcovers, Tom Clancy kind of stuff. I thought they'd sell well, but haven't had any luck on Facebook with them. Here's the original PlayStation 2. It was missing the door cover on the disc tray, unfortunately. And every single one of these Nintendo Switch boxes were empty, which is unfortunate because those are usually the most valuable games. It's for Nintendo. I was a little surprised the GameCube was the least valuable console. I kind of thought they'd be the most expensive based on, you know, old Game Boy Colors and Pokemon cartridges being worth a lot. A couple different boxes of tools. Now, I wasn't really sure what this thing was. It was called a Honeydew Whippet. Couldn't really find anything online about it. Now, this was an exciting bag to open. It was packed full of Xbox original games. I thought I hit a jackpot with this one. And I gotta dig through the rest of it to find any of those Nintendo Switch games or old Game Boy games. And after opening like the 10th box, I realized that all these discs were missing. Even empty game boxes are worth something, so it wasn't the end of the world. Again, I paid 10 bucks for the unit. These empty boxes are gonna pay for itself. Now, typically car stereo stuff doesn't sell too well, but this was a really expensive box. Even the speaker was worth a little bit of money, but the most valuable part was this top thing from JL Audio. I'm not sure what it exactly is, like in a subwoofer control panel or something, but I had it listed on Facebook for 300 bucks, so I'm kind of hopeful it sells for a lot. Even the glassware in this unit was pretty expensive. All the blue and green glass sells pretty well, and then there was even a uranium glass. There was even a Fenton glow-in-the-dark moon glass that glue in the dark when you had a black light under it, and thankfully there was a black light in this unit to test it with. So all those will be 20-30 bucks a piece, which is pretty good for vaseware type stuff. This was another great box of PlayStation stuff. All the controllers worked. One of them had a slight analog wobble, but overall pretty good. All the PlayStation games were in the cases, so that was nice. Unfortunately, no PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 3 console. And I would be so rich if I could just return all this stuff to the store at the price they paid for it. Like, even if you paid $5 a piece for a book, Like, I've thrown away thousands and thousands of books that are worthless. Here's the original Star Wars trilogy. There's like sand in this bag for some reason, and sand got into the VHS cassette, so I'm not sure if this will actually be able to be sold, but it's a nice wall decoration kind of thing. Here's a bunch of the Hot Wheel cars. This advent calendar actually had all the little wood pieces, so that was nice. This SpongeBob thing actually already sold on eBay for like 30 bucks. I was kind of surprised. It was like the first thing I sold. Your typical Risk game. And there was a lot of junk in the unit, like the clothes. Most of them are in really bad condition, just smelt, moldy. This Rockford car stereo thing was worth like 100 bucks. That was kind of a shock to me. More copper and brass to scrap. This is a pretty cool knife. A little small box that connects. There's some Lego pieces mixed in there as well. Here's some of the kid clothes. You can see a lot of them had tags on it, which is sometimes nice, but sometimes bad because of the unit smells. It's hard to sell smelly new clothes, so then you gotta take the tags off to wash them. So it kind of defeats the purpose, but a couple small boxes of Halloween decor. There were a couple of Christmas boxes also, with just Christmas lights and stuff inside of it. And then there were 4 boxes of these little tumblers, 800 of them in total. Not really sure what you'd use them for. The photo has a little yogurt parfait on them. This is one of my favorite bags in the unit. I really like lava lamps, and there were 2 of them in this bag. And they were large, like 50-ounce ones, so about double the size of a typical lava lamp. Unfortunately, one of them was missing the top cap, but they were still pretty cool to turn on them. This red PlayStation game was Twisted Metal 1, I believe, which had some pretty good value. It's like the original Madden. There was one Super Nintendo game in there called Pilot Wings. Never really heard of it. It was about 15 bucks online. So there's a red lava lamp and a blue lava lamp. This was the smaller one. But old vintage lava lamps are actually pretty expensive. They're about 50 bucks a piece. I'm tempted to keep these just for myself though. I don't know why you would store 2 lava lamps loose in a duffel bag though. I would have probably protected it a little more. So here's all the video games laid out. I'd say about half of the boxes were empty, but I mean for 10 bucks, this is a pretty good deal. Just imagine if this stuff was all pictured in the unit. It probably would have went for 300, 400 bucks. I got most of this stuff listed on eBay as big bundles based on the console, so like all the PlayStation 3 games together, all the Xbox games together. These 2 Grand Theft Autos were definitely the best items in the unit. They're in the $60 to $70 range. It's just crazy the wide selection this guy had. But overall, I'm really happy with this unit. These past two have been really good for 10 and 20 bucks. It's pretty hard to make 100 times your money on a unit, but when you only pay 10 bucks, not too hard. I did have one dump fee of about $45, so I did invest probably $55 total in all this stuff. But I'm estimating probably a $2,000 profit. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and come back for more videos, and please subscribe. Thanks.